This coming Friday, on the 22nd of May, the citizens of the Republic of Ireland will be asked to vote on whether or not to legalise same-sex marriage. Now, most sane people are generally in favour of gay rights, but there are one or two pesky so-and-sos who aren't. One such group of pesky so-and-sos is Mandate for Marriage. Mandate for Marriage is an Irish anti-gay organisation that is currently campaigning for a no vote in the upcoming referendum. Mercifully, they've released a video explaining why they don't think that same-sex marriage should be legalised in the Republic of Ireland. Let's take a quick look at that video, shall we? The video in question is entitled Mandate for Marriage, Vote No on May 22nd. At the time of filming this video, it currently has 22,901 views, and both comments and ratings are disabled. I suspect that the fact that when I was making notes for this video, Mandate for Marriage Vote No on May 22nd had 13 likes and 912 dislikes probably has something to do with that. And I'd just like to point out, Mandate for Marriage? Mandate? I don't know. Sounds pretty gay to me. Let's watch.
On the 22nd of May, you will be asked to vote in a referendum.
Don't make fun of his voice. Don't make fun of his voice.
Whether or not marriage should be redefined. Marriage, as ordained by God, is the union of one man and one woman in a lifelong monogamous relationship.
See, that's where you're wrong, because Ireland does actually already have civil marriage, which means that Irish people, Irish heterosexuals anyway, can already get married without God or Christianity or any religion having anything to do with it whatsoever. So unless you're suggesting that the Republic of Ireland literally forced Christianity on all of its citizens, you're going to have to make your ridiculous argument without bringing your religion into it. Let's see how that goes.
As the scripture says, therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother and shall cleave unto his wife.
Genesis also states that the first humans were created fully formed, and that the first woman, Eve, angered God by eating an apple from the tree of knowledge on the ill advice of a talking snake.
Homosexual activists want to change the current definition of marriage to include two men or two women.
Homosexual activists. Reading from Wikipedia, with sources that I'll link in the description, a 2015 survey of 1,000 individuals in Ireland found that 78% of people are in support of same-sex marriage, and 71% of people think that same-sex couples should be allowed to adopt. A 2013 survey showed that 73% of Irish people agreed that same-sex marriage should be allowed in the Constitution. Earlier, a 2008 survey showed 84% of Irish people support civil marriage or civil partnerships for same-sex couples, and 58% supporting full marriage rights in registry offices. And a March 2011 Sunday Times poll showed support for full civil marriage rights at 73%. So it's not, in fact, homosexual activists, unless you're suggesting that the majority of Irish people are all homosexual activists.
There are two main reasons why redefining marriage is wrong. Firstly, redefining marriage threatens religious freedom. No country in the world has ever redefined marriage by a popular vote.
Oh, you got me there. That's actually correct. No country in the world has legalized same-sex marriage via popular vote. I mean, it's funny how you forget to mention the fact that in 2012, 3 American states, Washington, Maine, and Maryland, did actually vote in favor of legalizing same-sex marriage at a state level. And Minnesota voted against a state-level constitutional ban on same-sex marriage. But whatever, you are right on that. Technically correct, I suppose. Let's move on.
The vast majority of votes taken on this issue have revealed overwhelming support for the traditional, God-ordained definition of marriage.
Wait. Hang on a second. You will fail to mention the fact that in 2012, 4 states essentially voted to keep same-sex marriage legal via a popular vote. But you will then include as evidence for your claims earlier votes from American states which had the opposite result. Texas and Florida voted against legalizing same-sex marriage in 2005 and 2008 respectively, but Maine, Maryland, Washington, and Minnesota all voted in favor of same-sex marriage in 2012, and you conspicuously did not include those as examples. That's not just disingenuous, that's very disingenuous. This is aside from the fact that referenda isn't the only way you can legitimately legalize same-sex marriage. You can vote people in based on policies, the courts could realize that there are universally accepted laws that guarantee equality, and legalize same-sex marriage as a result. If you love referenda so much, why don't you marry it? I also hasten to add that you're pointing out that no country in the world has ever legalized same-sex marriage via referenda, via popular vote. What happens when that does eventually happen? Is Mandate for Marriage going to say, oh well, the people spoke loud and clear, same-sex marriage it is? Of course they won't, because they are again very disingenuous. This is aside from the fact that morally speaking, civil rights shouldn't be voted on at all. People shouldn't have to have their rights voted on by other people. And at the end of the day, what exactly are you suggesting? That Ireland should be more like Florida? Good argument, guys. Good argument.
In spite of this, the goal of homosexual activists worldwide is to silence anyone who disagrees with same-sex marriage. In the last year alone, jobs have been lost, volunteers sacked, and local businesses sued or threatened with closure merely for expressing or upholding a traditional viewpoint on marriage.
Okay, let's get one thing clear. You are conflating tolerance with forced silence. You can say whatever you want about gays. You just can't force your beliefs on other people. Okay, let's break this down. Number one, that Mozilla CEO, he resigned. He resigned after people decided to boycott Mozilla. So what happened is he was homophobic, Mozilla hired him, and people said, I'm not sure if I want to do business with Mozilla because he's an asshole. If you want to call that silencing someone, that's on you. But his freedom of speech and his right to be homophobic was never legally impinged upon. With respect to the print shop and the bakery, that was just discrimination. Private businesses do not exist in the same way as does private property. When your business has a public interface, you can't just arbitrarily decide you're going to refuse service to certain members of society. Aside from it being an economic harm, in that you're just refusing to do business with people, it's a social harm because it further oppresses certain groups of people. So that wasn't an infringement on freedom of speech. That was people being rightly sued for discrimination. And the Red Cross volunteer you mentioned, he was sacked because the Red Cross felt that his homophobia represented them poorly and could hinder his work. Once again, you have the freedom of speech, i.e. the freedom to say what you want without the government knocking down your door and taking you off to prison. You do not have the right to freedom from consequences of your speech. And if the company you're working for thinks you're representing them poorly, they have every right to take action.
In 2012, the state of Denmark legalized same-sex marriage. All state churches in Denmark are now required to carry out same-sex ceremonies, regardless of pastoral objection.
Well, therein lies a problem with having state churches. You can't have a state which includes gay people, which does not offer services to gay people. You either have a religion that caters only to the adherents of your religion, or if you want to be the state religion, you have to provide your services to everyone. You can't have it both ways. And I should point out that you failed to mention that bishops in Denmark can refuse to carry out same-sex marriages if they so wish. It's just that the state has to provide someone who is willing to carry out the ceremony. Just a little detail, but for the sake of argument, let's just assume that all the examples you gave were indeed unfair. How exactly does that relate to marriage? Unless you're suggesting that there's some kind of slippery slope wherein the legalization of gay marriage will necessarily lead to people being discriminated against because of their religion. Because all the examples you gave were not really threats to religious freedom. It was people being stopped from discriminating against gay people based on their religion. Moving on.
Secondly, redefining marriage is bad for parents and children. Without exception, every child reared by a same-sex couple is denied either a father or a mother.
Okay. I could quite easily say that, without exception, every couple of heterosexual parents denies a child the right to have two freaking dads. How badass would that be? Of course, I'd have to prove that having two dads is the optimum environment for raising children, outside of just being totally freaking radical. Just like you would have to prove that having a mother and a father is the optimum environment for raising kids. Which you can't, because there is no evidence for that. There is no evidence to suggest that gay couples are any worse parents than straight couples. There have been no respectable studies that have found any evidence of ill effect on children raised by same-sex parents. You cannot hold that argument up as evidence-based, because it is just flat out not the case. Moving on.
In a recent Irish poll, 2/3 of Irish adults indicated their belief that children are best reared in the environment of a loving mother and father.
Let's have a look at that survey, shall we? First of all, that question was asked in isolation. The question asked was, do you agree or disagree that a child is more likely to grow up happy if raised in a home with a loving mother and father? It didn't say, in comparison to gay people. That question could have been in comparison to a non-loving mother or father. That question doesn't prove anything. Second of all, it's an opinion-based survey, which means you can only infer certain things from it. People can hold opinions that are contrary to the facts. A lot of people think that Wales is a principality. It's not. People think it is. See what I'm saying there? Opinions, facts, not necessarily the same thing. You get the picture. Third of all, that survey was carried out by ACCORD, which is the Catholic Marriage Care Service. this. Not exactly an unbiased source.
Every country which has legalized same-sex marriage has seen a rapid increase in the promotion of homosexuality to children in primary and secondary schools.
Okay, that's a bit vague. What exactly do you mean by promote? Because I'm getting the feeling that you could just mean teaching that things exist. Catholics may not agree with divorce, but divorce exists. You can't just not teach that something exists because you disagree with it.
Last year, same-sex marriage was legalized in Great Britain. This year, British primary schools now teach children from age 3 and above about homosexual, transsexual and bisexual issues. Books used in British primary schools now include 10,000 Dresses, which promotes cross-dressing.
10,000 Dresses is not about cross-dressing, it's about transgenderism, and to conflate the two is somewhat offensive. I don't know why, but I'm getting the feeling that that's lost on you.
King and King, which depicts two men kissing.
Because there are absolutely no children's books that depict a man and a woman kissing. You're barely even trying to hide your homophobia now.
Molly's Family, which describes lesbian parenting.
It's almost as if some people are raised by lesbians.
And Princess Boy, which explores sexual preference.
Based on the research that I found about the book My Princess Boy, it's not about sexual preference. But even if it is, there are tons of children's books that deal with and discuss heterosexual preferences. Again, barely even trying to hide their homophobia now. What exactly is wrong with learning about the fact that gay people exist?
Experience also shows that Irish parents will have no right to withdraw their children from school activities that normalise homosexuality.
Homosexuality is normal. They are teaching reality. This might just be my personal opinion, but I don't agree with the idea that parents should have the right to just arbitrarily pull their kids out of classes that are teaching the facts. Homosexuality is normal. It exists. Every single doctor, medical expert, and psychologist worth their soul will tell you that. I mean, for God's sake, some people don't think that a white person marrying a black person is normal. Should parents be able to remove their children from a class that teaches them that interracial marriage is a thing?
The scripture says, righteousness exalteth a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people.
Literally every point made in that video, aside from the single solitary statement that so far no country has legalized same-sex marriage via popular vote yet, was utterly false. And by the end of the video, you were barely even trying to conceal your contempt for queer people. And it is on that note that I urge anyone watching this video, any of my subscribers who are capable of voting in this referendum, to vote yes on May 22nd. Make sure that Ireland stands on the right side of history. People of Ireland, vote yes on Friday the 22nd of May. Thanks a lot. See you guys later.